fact, if God will allow me, I'm going to do a teaching on the altar. And we need to return to the altars. Amen? Amen. Go with me to the first book of Samuel. It is Mother's Day. I want to say we honor all the mothers in the house. Physical mothers, spiritual mothers, we honor you. Those who have raised children in the fear and admonition of the Lord. Those who've done their very best to take care of their children, their husbands, been a blessing to their families and their communities. Truly, America would not exist without mothers. You know, we wouldn't. You know, mothers are very, very important, crucial to God's plan. And so we just say, we love you and we honor you this morning. Amen. We'll be talking about a mother this morning. It's not, I'm not good at doing holiday messages. I never try to. This is probably as close as it'll get, since mother's involved in it. But it's about giving something precious to God, something that costs you something. You know, a lot of us talk, we hear a lot of talk today about being in covenant with God. For most people, that means God gives you stuff. The true covenant is when you give God something too. Something that costs you. So we want to look at that. Now, there was a certain man of Ramatham, and I'm probably not pronouncing half this right, so y'all we'll just go. Chapter 1, 1 Samuel, chapter 1. So y'all forgive me, you may pronounce these words different. I found out most people do. Everybody pronounces them different, so that shows we don't know how to pronounce them, don't we? And his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Joah, the son of Zaph, and Ephraimite. And he had two wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other, Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. This man went up from the city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Also the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priest of the Lord, were there. And whenever the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah his wife and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, although the Lord had closed her womb. And her rival also provoked her severely to make her miserable, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it was, year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, that she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? And why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? So Hannah arose after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord, and she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed to the Lord, and wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant, and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. And it happened, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, How long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you. But Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken until now. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition which you have asked of him. And she said, Let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. Then they rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to the house of Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked for him from the Lord. Now the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, Not until the child is weaned. Then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord, and remain there forever. So Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word. Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here, praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. So they worshiped the Lord there. We're going to stop right there for just a moment. You moms know how much your children mean to you. You fathers know how much your children mean to you. Culturally speaking, at this time in Israel, for a woman not to have a child, she was considered cursed. Her child, there was no Social Security in the day. If she became a widow and she had no children, she would have absolutely no one to support her, no one to take care of her. So children were not only a blessing of having a child, but also having a future. Because if you was a widow and you lost your son, you lost your means of support. Because children at that time, this is strange for us today, but we're expected to take care of their parents, financially, as well as in every other way. They were expected to do that. So she had none of these things. Plus, of course, we don't have this today, but the man had 2 wives, and the wife who had children provoked her, said mean things to her, cruel things to her, and it gave her anguish of soul. So she wanted a child more than she wanted anything. I want you to understand that. Her one desire, more than anything else, was to have a child, to have a son. Amen. And it says she cried out to God with great anguish. I want to ask you, what is the one thing this morning you really, 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 really want from God? I'm not talking about the daily stuff we pray for, God bless me with this, God bless me with that. I'm talking about the one thing that you must have from God. The one thing you're not willing to live without. Something that you wanted so bad that it says she poured out her soul. We all have known what we call the dark night of the soul. The place where you come into the Garden of Gethsemane and you're on a walk and where you're crushed down and you come to the end of I. You come to the end of yourself. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus died in 3 realms. Jesus didn't just die on the cross. Jesus died in 3 realms. He died. He is a spirit. He was a spirit. He possessed a soul. He had a body. That body died on the cross, but the soul died in Gethsemane. Your soul is your mind, your will, your emotions. The soul is what makes you you. And Hannah poured out what made her her. In her anguish, she went through every reason she wanted a son. She could have said everything I just told you. Father, everybody thinks I'm cursed. Everybody thinks that you have cursed me. She could have brought that up. She could have said, Father, I'm a woman. It is natural. It is a natural desire you have placed in my heart, and it is a natural desire for a woman to want a child. Is that not true? Amen. Because it's a fulfillment of God's promise. So she could have brought all those things up. She could have whined before God and said, everybody else has one. How come I can't have one? She could have done all those things. But in the anguish of her soul, in the pouring out of her soul, she came to a conclusion. She came to a conclusion. If you will give me this that I ask you, I will return it to you. If you give me this thing that I've got to have, this thing I want more than anything else in this life. And believe me, Hannah had come to the point. Her own husband said, am I not? The Bible said her husband loved her. Very clear, he loved her more than he loved the other wife. He didn't try to hide it. He said when he gave her, Peninnah her portion, it was one thing, but when he come to Hannah, he gave her a double portion. Matter of fact, he said, why are you so grieved? He knew why she was grieved. I'm sure as a woman she was telling, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby. But he would tell her, he couldn't make it happen. But he would tell her, am I not better to you than 10 sons? Do I not show my love for you? But that was not enough. She had to have a child. She had to have it. What is the one thing you've got to have? Do you even know what that one thing is? Have you ever went before God and says, God, this has got to happen? This has got to happen. For many people, it could be ministry. It could be something in ministry you want. Maybe you want a gift from God. But why do you want it? In this pouring out of her soul, she was sifted before the Lord. See, when we really get into this place of anguish, we get sifted. All of the wrong reasons get separated. And then we come to a conclusion of what we really, really want and why we really, really want it. And it's what God wants us to have because we really want it for the right reason. But she went even further. She said, if you'll give this to me, I'll give him to the Lord. Now, can you imagine a woman who wanted a child so bad that she held that little baby in her arms, kept him for a whole year or till he was weaned, and then to go up? Let me tell you something. Now, she wasn't making no churchy statement here. Lord, I'll give him to you. And then kept him. No, She took him. She gave him up. That little boy didn't go home with her. When they went up there and they sacrificed that bull, that little boy remained with the priest. She saw him once a year. You read the story, you'll find out she made a little robe once a year. She went up. She gave him to God. If you will grant me the desire of my soul, Lord, I shall return him to you. Lend him unto the Lord. Out of this one woman's anguish came forth the greatest prophet Israel had ever had. The greatest judge. The greatest and last judge of Israel. Samuel. Said none. Now, one thing is said about Samuel is not said about anybody else in the Bible. Who knows what it is? It says none of his words ever failed to the ground. What that meant is if Samuel said it, it came to pass. If Samuel promised it, it was kept. If Samuel said it, you could take it to the bank. Israel was at a low tide. Eli and his sons had forsaken the Lord. His sons were particularly wicked. They would go up and take the offerings by violence from the people of God. They would go in, the people would bring the best, and they would go up with a 3-pronged fork sticking in it all, and they would take it. And the people said, well, we don't think this is right. You should burn the fat first to the Lord. They said, if you don't give it to us, we'll take it. Said they slept with the women that came to the entrance of the tabernacle. God told Eli, he said, you honor your sons more than you honor me. This was the condition of Israel. It was spiritually bankrupt at the time. And yet this one woman, Hannah, who wanted something so much from God, God was able to bring her to anguish of soul. Church, there's a place in God we don't know much about in our modern day culture, and that is anguish of soul. Some of us have had our dark night of the soul, but there is a place, if you will allow the Holy Spirit to take you, where he will crush you, and he will break you, and he will end you. And see, when that happens, you'll know when it happens, because the person that happens to ain't going to be talking about themselves anymore. They're not going to be living for themselves anymore. Let me tell you something. You can do anything and everything for all the wrong reasons. And we'll say this and make a lot of Christians mad, especially in ministry. Especially in ministry. It's easy to want to preach, everybody's looking at you. You get to be the center of attention. Everybody calls you by a title. Right? People think certain things about ministers. They hold you in high esteem. Some of them do, some don't. Kind of works out. But let me say this. Those are all the wrong reasons. Those are not the reasons to minister to somebody. It's not to some side say, well, so-and-so is my spiritual this or spiritual that. That's not a reason. Matter of fact, that is a very selfish reason. It is all about the self. It's not about the other individual. There's nothing there. She wanted a child. She had a natural reason. She had a right to a child. If we call, if you could say she had a right, she had that. But she came into a place in God through desire, through wanting something so badly that she allowed the Lord to crush her. She said, I'm in anguish of soul. She's standing before the priest. And for those of you who don't think you pray out loud, let me tell you something. Everybody pray. Watch as you pray. Look at that waiting wall and watch them pray. Listen to them pray. They do it loudly. So it was strange for a person to be praying and no words coming out of their mouth. So strange that the priest thought she was drunk. But she was so crushed that in her mind and her heart she was praying, but no words could come out. No words could come out. And you know what happened? She had the God of heaven's attention. She had all of heaven's attention. God looked down and took Eli. Now Eli is standing in the position, and he is the anointed man of God. Notice she did not tell him what she asked for. Did you notice she didn't say, I'm praying for a child? She didn't say that. She just said, I poured out my soul. I poured out my petition before God. And Eli, because God of heaven had she had his attention, spoke and said, you go in peace. And what you desire be granted unto you. Now, he didn't make her a promise. He blessed her and said, what you desire be granted to you. And she took that as God himself had spoken. And it said she got up and she was no longer sad. We know the story. She went home, she had that child. And then she did what most people would not have done. She kept her covenant with God. How hard, moms, do you think it was for her to take that? I mean, it's one thing to give up a 15, 16-year-old kid. It's one thing to send your 18-year-old kid off to war. It's a whole other thing to hand your 1-year-old baby over. Isn't it? Can you imagine how hard that was for her? In anguish herself, and yet she had made a covenant with God. See, when we talk covenant, folks, let's get real about covenant. Covenant cuts both ways. Covenant is not just about God giving me stuff. Covenant is about me getting something. The reason most people never fail to realize the tithe is a covenant. Tithing is one of the greatest covenants on earth. Why? Because you bring something. You bring something and God promises to give something. Because you brought something. But most of us know that tithe don't really cost us. Does it? I'm talking about giving God something that costs you. If you want a ministry, are you really, really ready to give it to God? You know, Apostle Charles teaches that when you see a woman in Scripture, she usually represents the church. Church, we want to grow, we want to become something. Are we really willing to give it to God when we become it? Are we willing not to touch it? To treat it as such a holy thing that nobody would dare touch that glory? That's special. See, God sifts us. Why do I want a big church? I've asked myself that. It's easy to say, it's for the kingdom, brother. Did y'all see the thing Brother Greg posted about Easter Sunday? It was very comical, wasn't it? It was so sad, but what made it comical is so true. It's so very true. It's all about the kingdom. No, yeah, yours. It's all about your kingdom. I mean, that wasn't about his kingdom. Amen. But it's so easy for us to want things for the wrong reason. Do we want it for God or do we want it for ourselves? Are we really willing to, in anguish, ask for it and say, God, if you give it to me, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. I won't touch it. She gave that little boy to God. All she did was make a road for him once a year. That's hard, moms. Isn't that hard, moms? That'd be hard for you, wouldn't it, dads? I mean, truly to give. It's one thing to say, God, I give my child to you, but we keep them and we raise them and we enjoy them. But it's another thing to really, really, really hand that child over. It's hard to hand over whatever your child is, whatever that thing is you want from God so much. Maybe you want a great healing ministry. Why? Ask yourself why you want it. Is it for you, or is it so you can really, really heal somebody? We say, well, I really, really want to heal somebody. We all know that there's a lot of good stuff comes with it, don't we? Are you willing to give that up for His glory? Just to have a gift and say, God, it's your gift, and I won't touch that, Lord. I'll use it, but I will not allow anybody or anything to touch what you've given me, because it's a gift that you gave me. It's yours, and I give it back. Everything back to you. See, church, when we begin to grow, because it's a win, because God gave us a word 3 weeks ago. God said, quit putting off my promises till then, because I'm a right now God. And start believing there for today. Are we going to touch it? Are we going to say it's because we did this, or we did that, or we went through this, or we went through that, or we treated it as a holy gift from God? And when people say, what did y'all do? What did you do? Say, be willing to say, you know what? You know what I did? Absolutely nothing. He did it. He did it, and all I'm trying to do is not mess up what He did. Just go with it. And I think that we're ready for that. I think we're willing to do that. But there'll be some anguish of soul, because it's so easy to want to be recognized, isn't it? Somebody to give you that old attaboy, that pat on the back, and say, oh, Brother Lee, or y'all did this, man. If you hadn't did this, if this wouldn't have happened, or this wouldn't, you know. It's so easy, and it's so easy to let people do that sometimes. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes you just have to sit there and say, no, sir. No, sir. God did it. He did it without me. He did it, matter of fact, He did it in spite of me. Matter of fact, He had to trip all over me trying to get in the way to get it done. But God did it. I had nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, if I had gotten out of the way a lot sooner, He would have done it sooner. And just let Him shine. Just truly let the Lord shine. How many think about it? Now, I'm not trying to be ugly, and I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. Believe me, I'm way past judging other people's ministries. But how many of us have looked at ministries and said, you know what, there's more attention on that ministry than on the Lord? How many of us have seen the billboards, and there's all the glories about what this is doing, what they're doing, but there's hardly a mention of what He's doing. He's just kind of a little in the fine print there. I want us to be the church that puts Him way up there in the big print.
Amen.
Where He is truly, truly glorified, and when we stand back and touch. Worship team, are you really? When they say, man, you ushered me into the presence of God this morning. Oh, if it hadn't have been for you singing that song, Sister Perry, are you willing to say, you know what? I didn't usher you into His presence. His presence was here. His presence was here. I didn't bring you to Him. He came to us. Hallelujah. All you did was open your eyes and see the God who's always been here. And if we had a part, you know what? I don't think we had any part in that at all, but please give Him the glory. Yes. Please give Him the glory. Amen. Because He was there. How many of you know we've got to get out of this idea that we're bringing people up to His throne? Let me tell you something, folks. I got a Bible that said He came down. And He's been down for a long time. He's here. He's here. What we need to do is say, God, please open my eyes and let me see. Yes. Let me see what you're doing here today. Let me tell you something. God's doing something right now You say, well, ain't nobody shouting, ain't nobody running, ain't nobody doing this, ain't nobody doing... When, you know, if he wants to do that, that's fine. I'm all for it. But I want to see him when he's not doing that, because guess what? I had never really seen him when that was going on. I've seen the person running. I'm not saying they wasn't doing it for the Lord, but I didn't necessarily see him. If they're running, I want to see him too. But when they're not running, I want to see him too. Because he's always moving, and he's always doing it. I want us to want it so bad that we're really pour our soul out for it. To where it's no longer I, but it's all him. It's all about him. Now, can I tell you something about your God? Something really good. Because God uses the carrot and stick, I hate to tell you. How many of y'all figured that out yet? God give you a promise, he'll give you a condition. The condition is to get what he wants, which is for your good. And the promise is to get you to do it. Because God knows how we're made. Come on. It's not a bad thing. God knows how you're made. How many of you know when they ask you to work overtime, they give you an incentive, don't they? And if you work a very special day, they'll double the incentive because they know that man is designed in such a way he wants a reward. God knows that too. Now let's look at something. Go with me to chapter 2, 1 Samuel chapter 2. Please read this whole story. It's awesome. Please read this. Please read 1st and 2nd Samuel. Samuel was awesome. Verse 20. Every year, verse 18. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, even as a child, wearing a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother used to make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. And Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, the Lord give you descendants from this woman for the loan that was given to the Lord. Then they would go to their own home. And the Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, the child Samuel grew before the Lord. This woman, out of the anguish of her heart, gave to her what was probably in her mind will be the only child she would ever have. But she wanted it so bad. She said, God, if you give it to me, I'll give it back. That is awesome covenant. Can you see the covenant there? God, if you'll do for me what I cannot do for myself. She did not have a child, for whatever reason. But she said, God, if you'll give me what I cannot do for myself, I promise you one thing. I will give it back to you. Totally. No strings attached. She did say, if I give you this, I'm going to require something back. No. She did not. Let me tell you something about the God of heaven. We say it all the time. You can't outgive God. You can't. God said, without her even asking, God said, in covenant with me, you gave me something. You gave it all to me. And you asked me for nothing. But God said, because of that, I'm going to give you something. And He gave her 5 children to replace the one. There's nothing, we cannot outgive God, church. We cannot outgive God. If we're willing to stand back and not be noticed, I promise you, somewhere along the line, God will get you noticed. But you know what? It'll be okay because then it won't go to your head, it won't destroy us, it won't make us think we're somebody that we're not. We'll all know it came from God. How many of you know she knew every one of those children came from God? Just like the one she gave. Amen? Isn't God good?
Amen.
God is good. God is good. God is for us. He's with us. He's a holy God. I want to encourage you to pray one prayer for a while. Say, God, open my eyes. I want to see. Open my ears. I want to hear and help me to understand and cooperate with what you're doing. Amen?
Amen.
How many of you know He is here?
Amen.
I don't have to have a goosebump, though I can feel it most of the time. I don't have to feel it. I know He's here. He is present. Amen? And He's doing something here. And guess what? He's doing it in spite of us more than He's doing it because of us. He's doing it because He gave a word, a promise, years ago. And then He came to us a few weeks ago and He said, you need to stop putting off my promise into the future, saying one day, and realize today is the day of salvation. And start calling that promise into the now. And so every day I've been going to work, on my way to work, I'm saying, God, I'm reminding God of the promise He spoke. I said, Lord, you said it. And you said it's now. So God, I'm calling it now. This is mine now. This ain't no longer a 20, 40-year thing. This is a now thing. As far as I'm concerned, you said it. I'm expecting it now. You know?
Amen.
Because He said it. And He said it. And I tell Him just like that, God, you said it, you can't lie. I don't doubt it. There's not a doubt left in me about the situation anymore. None. Because He said it. He said it. And He is in the process of performing it. Things have changed, church, in the last few weeks. Things have changed for the good. For the good. I hope you can see it. I hope you're dialed in. And I'm just praying, Lord, just let me understand it and not mess it up. We have another word harvest line. Apostle Charles, when was it, about 2 months ago? Came here, there were several words that came to the church. One, that we were being unveiled. That there had been a veil over this church for a long time. People didn't even know we were here, but God was lifting the veil. That unveiling was a good thing. But He also said this, and he really fought. He fought hard with it to say it. And He spoke to us leaders. He said, you got to decrease that He might increase. You got to decrease that He might increase. And I've been praying into that. He said, I don't know what that means. He said, I wish I could tell you. I don't know what it means. He said, all I'm saying is, I know I heard it from the Lord. I'm giving it to you. It's up to you what you do with it. So I've been praying into it. I think I understand some of it. But the first question I had to ask is, am I willing to decrease? That He might increase. And I've come to a place I'm willing to decrease. How about you? Yeah. I'm willing to decrease. I just want to see Him increase. And I think you do too. And I think we're seeing. I truly, with all my heart, think we're seeing. Amen. So get past what you think you see and see what He's up to. It's awesome. Amen. Worship team, I want you to come. I want y'all during the service today, if you need to talk to the Lord about anything,